Was R. Kelly at the music video shoot?
Penetrate.
How did Proof end up in the Aaliyah Age Ain't Nothing But a Number video? Were you there?
Yeah, well, basically that happened like our last couple of interviews. It was a small high school. It was like a small group of hip hop nerds, and we all was from different parts of Detroit. But we had this. It was like this small clique. This clubs, the restaurants we went to, just the record stores. We all hung out everywhere, and Maurice Malone, of course, he's a native Detroiter, and he was providing some clothes for the Aaliyah video. And Aaliyah is from Detroit. A lot of people don't really get that. A lot of people be like, she was born, I think, in New York, but she was from here. She went to high school and she was raised here. I think I might be wrong, and I guess the commenters correct me, but I believe she was born in New York and her family moved here. Like her dad had found a job in Detroit, and she was like born and went to Detroit. I should know this school. It's like an art school. So she was from here, and she wasn't part of our clique. She was into art. She was a little bit younger than the clique. Because we talking about the whole. When I say the clique, I'm talking about Jay Dilla, the Paul Rosenbergs, the Proofs, the all the members of D12, the Slum Village. I said Jay Dilla. It was a whole cluster of us. That Kid Rock. It's crazy. Kid Rock was around. I don't know if he was hanging with us like thoroughly, like hang out at Proof Crib, but he was in that clique. You had art guys like Champ Town, Five Ella. It was a clique, and part of that clique was Maurice Malone was in that clique too, because he was a party promoter, and I believe I couldn't remember, but the director was looking for some Detroit because we filmed it. Well, I'm not saying we, but they filmed that at two or three different locations. It was filmed in Detroit, and they was like, "Hey, Proof, we want you to," when they was picking us for clothes, because Proof was at the hip hop shop. He was the manager at the hip hop shop at that time, just to make a couple of bread while he was being a starving artist. And it was like, why don't you be in the video? And that part in the video, he was only in there for like a few seconds. But of course, do the editing, because you in the editing. He was more in the video, but a lot of it got cut out.
Right.
So yeah, that's how he made his presence. They were the whole gist of the video was, of course, her like singing by herself. But then when she did, like, I want to call them B-roll shots, they were showing her like interacting with different guys trying to talk to her and all that. I'm not in the mind of the director, but they filmed a lot to that. They did a lot of filming for that music video. That's one of the things I remember. They did a lot of filming.
Yeah, so you're right that her family's originally from Brooklyn, New York, and she moved to Detroit at 5 years old, and she attended the Detroit Fine Arts high school or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, that's an elite school. I know a lot of your subscribers are like young, but that school was relative to like Fame. It was an old show in the 80s that was like a top tier music school in New York, and that was like our Fame. That was like you had to be a talented singer or music. Regular people could go there, but if you was like you had like a genius quality being a piano player or a guitar player, that's where you kind of harness your talents at that high school.
At the music video, right? That's so crazy that she was only 15 years old at that time. Because, like when we think of Aaliyah, like we were like, man, she was like one of the most beautiful like women in hip hop, from back in, right? But was R. Kelly at the music video shoot?
No. You know
Because he
what
wrote
happened
that
with that?
song.
Huh?
He wrote that song.
Oh, he wrote the whole album from what I
Right.
remember. Yeah, yeah. He like I gotta put my thinking cap on, but Aaliyah, R. Kelly was signed to Aaliyah's uncle's record label, like a production deal through Jive. And of course, R. Kelly is on, and that's kind of relative how Eminem blew up, and he brought D12 along. So R. Kelly, when he started blowing up, record labels be like, "What you got new?" They want to recreate. They seeing all the crazy numbers and money coming in their door. Hey, R. Kelly, you got anything new? And usually the manager and the artist kind of create a production deal where they could sign an artist and get distributed. Easy money, because you want more money coming in. If you got $1 million coming in, hey, I got this young girl from Detroit that's a talent. She's like a very she's a prodigy. Cause back then she was almost considered a prodigy just with her singing and I forgot what else. She had another talent too. And R. Kelly and her and manager, and of course that's her uncle, Blackground. I think that's the name of the label, Blackground. They said, "Hey, come along," and they signed. And Jive signed her through the R. Kelly and his manager production deal. Now I
Yeah,
wasn't out.
man.
Now I'm in the music business, but at that time I was doing my thing. I wasn't just an intern. I wasn't in the office. I didn't have nothing to do with the deal, but that's how it was purported to the public and to the industry.
Are you a R. Kelly fan?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I
Well,
am. I mean, that's where you come into, do you separate art from the artist?
right. I think that the man obviously has issues, but he is like the best R&B singer that we've ever had, pretty much. The most talented, like, writer and everything, even though if they say that he can't read.
Yeah, but I gotta bring out, I'm not saying we rewind that, but if you bring out that, you can't be singular. And I'm not trying to play the race card, but if you say R. Kelly and we talk about that, then you gotta roll out. Let's do the rollout. You gotta bring up Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones. I love all these artists I'm talking about. I love them because my music brain is fucking phenomenal. So you got to bring out Bill Wyman. He married a 15-year-old girl from the Rolling Stones. You got to bring out Elvis Presley. You got to bring out Jerry Lee Lewis. All those guys were dating underage women. And you got to put them in a cluster. So, if people be like, "Yo, R. Kelly, R. Kelly, R. Kelly, R. Kelly," you gotta roll them off too. You gotta just be like, uh musicians have a problem obeying with the letter of the law of young and old.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people have done that. So it's not just R. Kelly, like you said, there's tons of people that have done it.
Right.
But to your what you're saying though, like I feel like in the 80s and even before then, it was more socially acceptable for younger women to be dating older guys like that. Once you start to get into the 90s, it started to be a little bit more like, these are children.
Well, Panda, we ain't gonna talk about that because my family tree, I don't want to even talk. I gotta take the fifth on that because my mother family is from Arkansas and my dad's family is from Alabama. You would be shocked at the age range that like my grandfather and it would be my great grandfather, and you would be shocked. It's the age appropriate. And I'm not trying to give R. Kelly and Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis a leeway. But back then, when we talking about the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, a
Right, but it
50.
was socially acceptable back then, though. It
Yes,
was
yes.
different, though. But what I'm saying, though, is like once you started to get in towards the 90s and stuff, that started to change. There was a shift.
Yeah, but you got to remember, me and R. Kelly, and I hate, I hate the way that sounds. R. Kelly only got me by like I think 3 or 4 years, and you got to remember, our parents were in that, so our parents, their parents, our grandparents, that stuff was so the line of lineage, it was very short than what you think. It was very short. Because you got to remember, man, you're talking to my dad had me very late in, well, I ain't gonna say very late, but he had me at a very late middle age. So my dad fought in World War II. My dad was born in 1923. So you got to remember that. That's like, that's really wow. So with R. Kelly, I don't know R. Kelly's dad age, but you thinking that R. Kelly's dad was probably in that if his dad, and I'm being very presumptuous, but if his dad was in my dad's age range, you got to think it really don't play a part. And I, for one, I'm not sanctioning. I think it's 100% wrong, but you're right. It was just it wasn't acceptable hit back in those days. But R. Kelly is okay, cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, but once like the law changes and stuff like that, you got to adjust with the times. You know what I mean? Once the culture changes, you got to adjust with the times. So yeah, we
Yeah.
can't give him a pass. But I mean, at the same time though, you can't deny the man's talent either, though. All them trapped in the closets and stuff. Now he's coming out the closet.
If we was abiding by old laws, I couldn't go get a sandwich at Subway. I mean, I'm just saying it. So yeah, so times change, new laws come in. So I agree. You got to change what times are changing. Times definitely are changing.